Hi everyone, welcome to the pre-watch video on depreciation as a concept. This is a concept which has really been hero of the show which is named as the long-lived asset. So people, let's tackle this hero. Let's call spade a spade. And in this particular pre-watch session, we're going to talk about how to calculate the depreciation, what are the different methods around depreciation, how some of the assumptions that you're going to take at the beginning might change, and is what's the impact of that change onto the financial statement. But and there will be a little bit nitty-gritty that you will stead into. But all I'm trying to say is that keep your head absolutely out of confusion. What we are essentially trying to calculate is by what value is your mobile phone losing every year because you're using them. What we're trying to calculate is what we have already done in the Baron Coburg case, where we said that a new ox, which was good for 10 seasons, is by the end of the first season good only for 9 more seasons, and the fall in the value in that ox is about 4 bushels of wheat. So it's not something very new that you and I will calculate. All right. And like I mentioned in my first video, always keep your mobile phone, my laptop, or machinery for a business in context whenever we are talking about this long-lived asset. Right. So I'm going to pick up this topic of depreciation, taking a very, very, very simple example. And that example is of, let's say, a laptop. A business buys a laptop for a particular employee for about 40,000 rupees. Okay. And it adds some antivirus, some laptop bag for 5 more thousand. So what's the capitalized value into the books? Well, we have done that concept. That is 45,000 overall. So to me, cash down 45,000 and the value of laptop goes up by 45,000. That's pretty much the concept of capitalization. So you see, people, that the output of capitalization, the final number of capitalization, is the input, the first input for depreciation, right? I don't need to tell this informed audience that depreciation is the per annum fall in the value of the asset. Okay, that's the formal definition. I did want to kind of bring that up. You will anyways have that on the slides. So people, going back to the laptop example, 40,000 paid to supplier, 5,000 incidental. So 45,000 is the landed price. That's the value at which it appears in my books. And on the date of purchase, someone asked me, how long are you planning to use it? Well, perhaps 4 years, roughly 4 years. And at the end of the 4th year, what would you do? I was like, I'm going to sell it. I'm going to sell it in the second-hand market. What is the value at which you will sell it? Of course, how would I know? More particularly in case of technology, where the prices are crashing. But still, the accounting system wants me to take a call. That means I'm standing at T0. I'm on the date of purchase, and I have to make a guess, an informed guess about what will I do at the end of the useful life. And by the way, that useful life itself is an assumed number in terms of years. But nonetheless, we got to take that. So let's take that. So I would, let me just give you these numbers in writing. 45,000 is the landed cost, which is 40 plus 5. I think I will use it for 4 years. And at the end of the 4th year, I think I will sell it for 5,000. And again, it's a guess, huh? It's a guess. And can I change this 4 years? Absolutely. Can I change this 5,000 later? Absolutely. But right now, where I'm standing at T0, these are the assumptions. I formally call them accounting estimates. Why are accounting estimates required in general as a policy? Because I need to do accounting today using some numbers which will get known tomorrow. So that's where the rule allows me to make some kind of an informed guess. These are not tukka, people. These are not off the cuff. This is an informed. You know how long your mobile is going to be. So it's not that you're going to talk about the oil reserves for RIL. We are not doing that kind of stuff. It's your mobile. You would know. It's my laptop. I would know. That kind of thing. So people here, how much is the total depreciation for the year? This is the first thing you got to know. And I'm going to talk to you as a businessman. Out of 45,000, that's the future benefit you think you will derive out of the asset. That's the reason why you're calling it an asset at 45. Not because you paid that amount, but because it's a future benefit that you're going to get out of it. And out of which you have already made a commitment to yourself that you're going to sell it at 5,000 after end of, fourth year. That leaves only 40,000 as the worth that you need to derive, that you need to call out, that you need to utilize through usage. People, this amount of 45,000, this amount of 45,000 divided into 5 and 40, this 40 is depreciable value. That means out of 45, I will not touch that 5 because 5 I need as a value of the asset at T4. So I will make a reduction only to the extent of 40. In other words, this is D1 plus D2 plus D3 plus D4. Each D being the depreciation of that year. Which means, oh wow, that means the only thing which is left is how would I divide this 40,000 into the first year, second year, third year and the fourth year. So far, what I have used is the historical cost. This is the salvage value. This is the estimated life. Okay, and this, like 40,000 I said, is a depreciable value. The only thing which is left is how would you divide it, into different parts. Let us assume, and there are about 4 methods that we will do together. Out of them, 2 will be similar to each other, but yeah, nonetheless, they're known with different names, and that's, like I said, the hero of the show. Don't forget that you're dealing with the hero, so you better pay respect. Now, the division of this 40,000 under D1, D2, D3 happens according to the logic, and that logic is the worth that I think I will utilize in a particular year. Worth utilized in each year. Sometimes I get a sense that my worth each year from the asset is going to be, the benefit from the asset every year is going to be similar. Look at me. I mean, I can't differentiate the first year with second year. So every year there are some classes. Every year I'm going to use my laptop. Every day you're going to watch Netflix on your phone. It's not that a year 1 will be very different than year 2. So there is a simple method. Let's divide it equally. What I'm trying to say is 40,000 will be divided across 4 years to give you the per annum usage cost of 10,000. This 10,000 is a per annum number, okay, which is part of this 45 at the end of the day, because this is part of 40 and 40 is part of 45. So may I again give you the formal definition of depreciation. 10,000 is the annual cost of usage of this laptop, which is part of this 45,000, by which this number of laptop of 45,000 is going to go down by the end of the year. So at T1, what will be the reduction in the value? 10, and the futuristic benefit is going to be 35. How can you say that at the end of the first year the futuristic benefit is 10? I'll tell you a quick reconciliation. Let me pick up another color. Your D1 to D3 to D4, 3 years into 10,000. 30,000 is the usage benefit that you think you will derive. And after using it for 1 year, 3 more years are left. That means 30,000 for the usage part. And don't forget, you're going to also sell it at 5,000. So 30 plus 5, that's how you get a number of 35. This is the future benefit. You get a sense that depreciation is based on the historical cost. Absolutely it is. But at the back end, at the back of it, at the logic level, it is also based on the future benefit out of that. Okay, and again, like I said, I hold you in very high esteem. So I am very, very careful not to tell you something which you already know. By 10,000 in the first year, I will reduce the value of my machine and reduce my profits. So the value of the machine becomes 35. In the live class, I will introduce the concept of accumulated depreciation, which is something that I'm not picking up here. What I'm trying to say is the impact on profit is going to be absolutely same, only for presentation purpose. I'm repeating myself, only for presentation purpose, I am going to not touch the value of machine. I will continue to keep the machinery at original cost of 45. Instead, I will continue to make a provision sort of thing. I would call it accumulated depreciation. You see, my A is equal to L plus C is still going to tally. Rather than taking anything to machinery, rather than putting it down, I will take it to accumulated depreciation, so that by the end of the year, in my balance sheet, I can clearly see machinery at 45. And in addition to that, on the liability side, I can see an accumulated depreciation worth 10. I'll tell you in the live class what to do and why to do. It's for better presentation, as a matter of fact. But I will use Excel to demonstrate this particular thing. So for the purpose of this video, you can just assume that ultimately the value of the asset will come down and the profits will go down. Hey, it is a non-cash thing. That means you don't have to make any payment to any outsider, which means depreciation is one of the very important things which is missing from cash flow statement. Ultimately, it's an operational aspect. We did that in the exam, in the class as well, that even for a financial firm or a non-financial firm, depreciation remains an operating thing. And therefore, if at all it should appear, it should come under CFO. You will not find any deduction in CFO because of depreciation, because there is no cash involved, as a matter of fact. Okay, so let me show you a couple of things which are very, very critical. It's an operational expense. It hits your EBIT. It's actually the gap between EBITDA and EBIT. Are you wondering what is an amortization? EBITDA, DA. So D stands for depreciation, A stands for amortization. It's just another contextual name for intangibles, which means if your patent ka value goes down, that fall in value is called as amortization. I can put another word here. Honestly, I would call it depletion. I have put in the word here, which is the fall in the value in the natural assets. Let's say gold mine, or let's say for singers, the voice box depletes. If you happen to hear an old singer, let's say Lata Mangeshkar, in her recent most performance, vis-a-vis while she was in her peak of the career in 60s, you would see major difference. You see, the voice box is natural asset, it will go down. That fall contextually is called as depletion. Rest everything remains same. Amortization, it's exactly the same stuff. It's just that the value for which we are looking at, that changes. And in my example, 45 is the value of the asset at the beginning, T0, it becomes 35. That 35 is amortized cost, which is the second valuation base. If you remember in the topic of balance sheet, we did 6 valuation bases. Historical cost, amortized value. Amortized value is a stable curve which starts from 45 and will end at the salvage value over a period of time. So here is T4. That's my long-lived asset curve for you. So at the end of the first year, my asset has reached a number of 35. If you're an MBA, you would understand this graph very well. That's the fall in the value. This is the machinery curve. How would the machinery curve value appear over a period of time? Okay, after the second year, 10 more thousand, since I had assumed in my example equal amount of usage, this will become 25,000, so on and so forth. Why does the fall in value happen? That's fairly simple. It happens because of wear and tear. It happens sometimes because of passage of time. Depends on the asset, actually. Depends on the asset. So if I have an asset called as building, whether you use it or not, after 5 years, the building is going to look a little down in value. That is in terms of passage of time. But an automobile, on the other hand, would see a reduction in the value, both because of the kilometers run, which is the usage, and also the time. So when you go out to sell your old bike or your old car, they ask you two questions. Which model? Because they want to assess the time-based depreciation. And what's the meter run? How many kilometers has it clocked? They want to assess the usage based. I'm going to connect a small point, digress here. In management accounting, there are things like variable cost and fixed cost that you would talk about. Okay, if it is a pure usage based depreciation, then it's a variable cost. Any other depreciation is a fixed cost. I'll talk about that, okay, in a while. That's where my hero of the show, the methods of depreciation, and I am not going to really give them any extra credit. The only thing that they got to do is to divide the total depreciable amount, 45 minus 5. 5 is what you have to realize upon selling it at the end of the useful life. So right now, the only task that these 4 good-looking champions have to do is to divide this 40 into 4 different parts. I'm making a very silent point that in every case, the total amount of depreciation will be same, which is 40,000. Yes, it is quite possible that one of the methods depreciate a larger portion in the initial years, so automatically it will be left with a smaller portion for the later years. So in that case, if it's a depreciation curve, sometimes the curve is like that. Here you have T1 and here you have T4, T2 and T3. On the other hand, the assumption that I have taken, equal benefit every year, is going to give me a curve like this. Do you see it's a straight line? Oh, that's the reason why it's called as the straight line method. And my straight line here starts with 10. People, all I'm trying to say is the area under this curve and the area under the slant curve is going to be exactly the same. In the initial years, people, do you see one point here? That in the initial years, accelerated method of depreciation, I'm talking about 2 and 3. I'll come to that. I don't want 2 and 3. Accelerated method charge greater depreciation compared to straight line. But in the later years, the trend reverses. And you will see that your straight line method overtakes it. Because again, the point is the total is 40,000. The total is 40,000. Okay, so that's your straight line, people. The logic is which ones to choose, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Role is to divide 40 into 4 parts, or whatever your life is. But how would a manager, how would an accountant, how would a business choose which method to follow? Depends on the usage pattern, number one, and depends on the asset. Look at an asset called as a tractor. Tractor's performance in the first 2 years is phenomenal, and in the last 2 years is pathetic. So I, as a user, derive immense benefit in the initial years, but not so much benefit in the later years. That makes the usage of written down value or double declining better in context of tractor. But if I am using, let's say, a projector, had it been a live class, had it been a physical class, I should have said, there would be an overhead projector. And the most important element of an overhead projector is the lens that it has. Now, the beauty about that lens is that if you buy a projector, put it in a very safe box, open it after 20 years, it's going to work exactly the same, because the lens gets older not by time but only by pure usage. That's where unit of production method comes into picture. The lens has a life based on the number of hours that you would use it for. So if this 40,000, the asset that I have in question, if that is actually the projector, then I would be made to calculate the number of hours that I will use it over 4 years. Let's take random thing. I would, let's say 40,000 is the total depreciable amount, rupees. And I think over a period of 4 years, I will use it for 10,000 hours. Over a period of 4 years, huh? So I will have a charge rate. Depreciation is nothing but a charge rate. I will have a charge rate of rupees 4 per hour. So in every year, whatever is the number of hours that I clock, I will multiply those hours by 4 to get that annual depreciation. You see, pure variable. That's what I said. This part is pure variable. All others are fixed cost. They give a damn about the actual usage. Straight line method says equal amount every year. Okay. Now, it is quite possible that in the month of February, you didn't use it as much. But, straight line method doesn't really bother about it. Materiality in concept. Choda mota cheez hota rehta hai. That's a point number 1, 2, 3. Fixed cost. No usage pattern, considered as such on a day-to-day basis. But in case of unit of production, pure variable cost. Okay. Coming to this 2 and 3, although in the live class we will do a live, example. Of course, in a live class there will be a live example. Sorry for that bad joke. In the live class we will take a case on the Excel where I will make you calculate these figures, and then make some comparison. And now you have done the balance sheet ratios also a little bit, so you can look at the impact on ratio analysis as well. That's actually the reason why I want to play that if and then game. If this, then what, with you. And that's the reason why I asked you to do the ratios a little early, in your course. So on that, the impact on ratios will largely be done in your live class. But all I'm trying to say is, in case of written down value method, you need to have a rate, not the number of years of life. You need to have a rate which you can multiply with your value to get the depreciation of that year. Let's say it becomes 18,000. From 45, you come to 18,000, which gives you the remainder value of 27. Next year, you multiply 40% on 27. So you see, the hero of the show under 2 is that depreciation rate, that assumed rate, and you're multiplying it on 45, not on 40. Oops, that's where this method gets it wrong. I didn't have to depreciate entire 45. I told you the total depreciable value is going to be only 40. But this method doesn't really capture that essence. It says, well, I'm going to apply myself on whatever is the opening book value. And the first year opening value was entire 45. So it just starts firing on that 45. If the method doesn't care about the salvage value of 5, an accountant better do. So in the live class, we will commit a mistake and then come back from it saying, oh, that's what it means. That is what it takes for an accountant to take care if the rate is directly multiplied on the historical cost, not on the depreciable amount. That's written down value for you people. And the double declining method is exactly same as the written down value method, except that the rate here is 2 divided by life. That's it. That's why double declining. So 1 by life, let's say for a 5-year method, a 5-year asset, 1 by 5 is roughly 20%. Twice that, 40% is the per annum depreciation. That's how you logically arrive at the rate. In case of written down value method, that connect with the life is missing. Okay, somehow. At an MBA level, that's enough. Although if you dwell deeper into this, you will find that even in the written down value method, I mean, people are not fools to have come out with this. They would have spotted this early on. There is a sense of life at the back end. But, as an MBA, just think about the difference between 2 and 3 as a scientific arrival of life and the connect with the rate. Okay, that's double declining method for you. And in the live class, of course, we will talk about, is the change of method possible? Absolutely it is. For first 2 years out of 5 years, I was following straight line. But then I realized, no, WDV is better. I will give you conditions as to when can you do that, okay, in the live class. But that's possible. And what if that's possible, then what will be the impact on financial statement? That's what we're going to do through our example. What will be the impact on ratios? Like I said, we will do again, through our example. Total amount of depreciation in any case is going to remain same. So people, in the live class, there is a lot of excitement that I am sure will happen. I am super excited to talk about what will happen if this 5,000 that I was hoping that I will sell the asset for, that changes. What will be the impact on the financial statement of that year. And if that change happens, oh my God, does that mean that whatever I have done so far has been wrong? Let me give you the slide for that. Sure. As a matter of fact, can you make changes in the useful life? Yes. In the salvage value of 5,000, 4 years and 5,000? Absolutely yes. Can you change from one method to the other? Yes. These are all prospective changes. Okay. 2 years ago, where IFRS was coming in, things were different. But good news is right now it's all prospective changes, which means you will not change anything that has happened already. You're going to only worried about the future years, including the current years and onwards. Okay, so people, that's what my agenda for depreciation is. Been a little longish video, I understand, but that's the respect that we got to pay to the hero of the show. Long-lived asset. You can't learn it unless and until you understand the way depreciation works, right? Thanks very much for watching this. I am very, very excited to take lots of numericals in the live class when we meet on. Thanks for watching this, people, again.